Hey folks, this is Caleb James DeLisle, and today I'm going to talk to you about the markets, the geopolitical situation, the situation that is unfolding up in Canada, and of course, our favorite project, PKT. So let's get right in. Let's start by taking a look at the macro markets. We have the euro dollar, which is down below $1.01. So that is some news. We may potentially in the next couple of days see a crossover parity where a euro is worth less than a dollar. That is due mostly to the fact that the European Union is having difficulty finding energy after Russia is almost certainly going to cut Europe off from any access to natural gas, and Europe is going to be scrambling to figure out where their energy is going to come from. We also have gold. Gold is also down. This is emblematic of the US dollar wrecking ball, which we'll get into in a second. Then Bitcoin, this one is just, there's so much energy in this market. It's really hard to qualify this in terms of anything else. We have wheat, which fortunately has started to come down. It's starting to come up a little bit, but it has come down a lot from its previous all-time high. Last Friday, we got our news in about the Federal Reserve balance sheet, and they have managed to bring it down further. So that's mixed basket because it will bring inflation under control, but it is going to create serious pressure on emerging markets, which we'll start to see in a little bit. Now we have oil. Oil is 103. It would be very nice to see oil coming down under 100. That would be a major improvement for the world economy. But 103, well, we'll take what we can get. It was 123 not so long ago. Now, in the news, we have China riot at a bank in China. There's people rioting outside of the bank. The free press is still patting themselves on the back and calling themselves a free press, and has just absolutely no understanding of why anybody wouldn't believe them about anything. We have also news about the Chinese population has been contracting for several years. And that's a very interesting thing, that population, which is something that Elon Musk has brought up, that the population contraction is a big problem. And it seems that this is happening everywhere in the world. It's not just in Western countries. And what we need to look at is when we talk about population contraction, you need to look at Japan. Japan is a good example of a country where the population has contracted. So this, the World Economic Forum is, as I had predicted on my social, is going to probably be a bad word going forward as politicians turn on them because of the proposals that they've made, the ideological things that they've suggested that have been taken up by politicians, and in many cases with serious consequences. For example, in Sri Lanka, where the government has basically collapsed, and then you look back a couple of years, and the president of Sri Lanka was very happily proposing to the WEF how he was going to create this amazing amount of wealth and prosperity for Sri Lanka, and now that has all gone sideways. So I think what we should expect to see in the future, the WEF becoming a bad word and becoming something that politicians are turning against. We see also major manufacturing moving back onshoring, so moving back to, for example, the US, and you can see that it's moving away from places like China, away from places like Germany, and predominantly manufacturing of products that will be sold in the US is moving toward the US and to a lesser extent to Mexico. China, iron and steel, that the iron and steel sector is in trouble. That's just more signs of economic weakness, especially in emerging markets. Europe is, and I spoke about the euro. Now Europe is having difficulty finding fuel, and they're pressuring Africa to sell them gas. We're going to find out how well that works. Obviously, when things get tough, everybody takes care of themselves. Africa is not going to want to sell gas to Europe. They're going to want to keep it for Africa. Now, the question is, will they be forced to, or will Europe have to go without that gas? Another one from Netherlands, where there's a developing situation with farmers who are protesting against being kicked off their land, which is a very valid thing for farmers to protest against. And the president of Netherlands who also spoke about his plans to turn the Netherlands into a green economy, and now also the WEF, and now he has started this business of this nitrogen thing that has caused this farmer uprising, and now we have evidence of, in fact, there's even potentially sabotage, and the supermarket was burned down. And obviously I find that quite amusing, because these are the people who were behind this, and whether it was intentional or not, it is a bad thing. Now, China, they are making a deal with the Solomon Islands, and that's a very interesting thing, because you have the Solomon Islands is kind of like China's Taiwan. So America uses Taiwan in a certain way. America likes to be very friendly with Taiwan and do military integration with Taiwan, which causes a lot of annoyance for China. And China, if they were to invade Taiwan directly, then that could be a big problem for them. So instead, they are. So if they were to invade Taiwan, then they would look like the bad guy in that, as Russia was the bad guy for invading Ukraine. Now, what they're doing instead is kind of flipping the script and becoming very friendly with the Solomon Islands, in order that America is put on notice, and America's the one who has to make a decision of whether they're going to invade the Solomon Islands or allow China to expand its military in that region. So it's just another interesting thing to see. You see that there are people moving, there are actions going on, and this matters for markets. So what I spoke about earlier, the US dollar wrecking ball, what happens is, and I spoke about this in an earlier video, you can watch the video about why central banks are problematic. What happens is, when the US dollar becomes less widely available, then emerging markets will start to slow down their so what will happen is, as the US dollar becomes less widely available in emerging markets, it becomes very difficult for them to pay their debts. And all of these countries have debts, and for the most part these debts are US dollar denominated. So as they have a difficulty paying their debts, investors start bailing out on them, and then they have even more difficulty to pay their debts, because nobody wants to continue lending to them. They start calling in their debts, their bonds start to mature, they have to come up with all the money. And so this is one of the reasons why a lot of emerging markets, a lot of countries don't like the US dollar. They would like to get away from it, but it's very difficult for them to do so. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this situation that's unfolding in Canada. So there has been an internet outage, or an internet shutdown, as I like to call it, of an internet provider. One of the major internet providers in Canada. There's 3 major internet providers. One of them is known as Rogers, and Rogers has been out for 3 days. So for me, for an internet provider to be out for 3 days, so if it's a wire that broke, for instance, then it would be one city perhaps that might be out. But an entire provider to be out across Canada, all the way across. So you can see in this heat map, you can see where there are outages, and this is just a heat map of the population of Canada. This is where the people live. So what you see here is that everywhere where there are Rogers subscribers, there are outages, or were outages. They've been repairing them a little bit at a time, but they're not finishing. And so even just 48 minutes ago, the Rogers outage is not over for everyone. So that's very, very telling for me. And if you have an outage and it is a software problem, then you expect it to be potentially take out the entire ISP, but it'll be back relatively quickly once they just, reboot the computers, update the software, whatever it takes. The fact that, and of course, if you have a hardware outage, then you expect it to be very focused on a particular area, wherever the backhoe dug up the fiber, for instance. But the fact that we have an outage, and they're not really telling us what happened, but the fact that we have an outage and it's affecting both, it's widespread, and it's not coming back very fast. This is a very strange situation, and this is reminiscent of the type of internet outages or internet shutdowns that Packet is all about trying to prevent. So now we have another just a picture of the outage. As the number of prefixes announced dropped off because their routers stopped routing. Then you have here in the Hindustan Times, they indicated that they believe that it was a maintenance update of a core network causing routers to malfunction. So again, 3 days, that doesn't make any sense. In 3 days, in less than 3 days, you should be able to have people physically at each of these data centers to physically restart these machines. The data centers have on-site remote hands. If you know that this router has failed in this way and that what you need to do is plug in a USB stick and restart it, then you can send those images of those USB sticks out to all of those data centers, and those things should be back within 3 hours, not 3 days. So what I want to say is that I think that politically motivated internet outages are something that we're going to see in the future. And I also think that we will not know for why it happened. So we're going to get these vague explanations. Maybe it's going to be because of Russia. Maybe it's going to be because of a hacker or something, or it's just going to be an unexplained outage. This is something that we need to concern ourselves with, because the internet is the means by which we can communicate. It is the means by which we can check notes with each other and figure out what's really going on. So back to the media lamenting the fact that nobody trusts them anymore. They would like nothing more than to have an internet outage so that they can be the only voice that you can hear. So when we see these internet outages and these extended internet outage, this is something that we need to pay a very close attention to, because this is where you could potentially have an internet outage that lasts for a couple of weeks, and then this is the kind of thing where then they may come in and say, there's the internet as it's working is broken, it doesn't work. We need to upgrade to a different protocol. And that's where you're going to see they're upgrading you to a protocol where they're able to control that internet that much more effectively, because the internet protocol as it works today is relatively freedom-centric. It is relatively difficult for them to control. So moving you over to an Internet 2, like what China is doing with Huawei, that kind of thing is what you would expect to see come out of an internet shutdown. So I just want to call attention to this. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily a politically motivated internet shutdown, but this is what it would look like. This is what you should expect to see. They're not going to go on TV and say, we shut down the internet because we don't like you. What they're going to do is they're going to have reasons. They're going to have excuses. It's going to be normal. It's going to be, just like 2 days to flatten the curve. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It's going to be the same kind of thing where it seems relatively normal when it happens, but the objective is to push you onto a new internet where they are able to control you. So what does Packet do about that? Well, I mean, if you have internet sharing, then if your internet provider was Rogers, but you're meshed with somebody who has an internet provider through Bell Canada, then your traffic would just flow through Bell Canada. And let's imagine that Bell Canada's in on the deal and they turn it off too. Well, if somebody has a connection to Starlink or another satellite company, then all that traffic will just mesh to that, and you're able to stay on the internet that way. So in this case, Packet's very important. This is one of the reasons why I consider Packet to be very important, because it turns the internet into a self-sovereign network where there is nobody who can just pull the plug and turn everybody off. So on that note, let's take a look at Packet, see what's going on in the market. Are we heading up or down? And I have drawn a few little trend lines on this market of Packet. This is the past since I have this on the day chart. This is since the past, this is June 6th, so just about a month. And what we see is the famous decaying wave. So this wave is going to go up, down, up, down, up, down, until it has reached until those two lines have come together, and that's where you typically see it makes a decision. So we can't tell you which way the decision is going to make, which way the decision is going to go, but what we know from technical analysis is that typically this is where you get a decision point. So you see this line here, it's between this and this, but you can see it hits the line here and here and here and here. And we expect that this is going to be forced in the next couple of days to make a decision of whether it wants to go up or whether it wants to go down. So I'm going to show you another chart, which is Bitcoin, and you can see the same pattern here. So I'm just going to zoom this in a little bit. And what you see is I took these 2 points here and then these two here, and it was a decaying wave. The amplitude decays and it comes together, and then it decided to pop up. It wanted to go up, and then now it's back on the line. It's going to test that line again. Either it's going to reject upward or it's going to crash downward, in which case the next point of resistance should normally be this line here. In any case, I just thought that was interesting. It's, technical analysis tells you how the market will go up and down. It doesn't tell you whether the market will go up and down. If you could find out whether the market will go up and down, then you'd be a quintillionaire, because you would just be able to predict the future. I think that not only the packet is interesting because of the market, but it's also interesting because you have these internet shutdowns where a country or an ISP just pulls the plug. People get turned off. They don't explain to you why it happened, or they do that. It's a weak explanation. It doesn't stand up to reason. And then what is your plan B? What do you do when the internet gets turned off, when your provider just unhooks you? And this is something that happens a lot in emerging countries, where there may be political corruption, and during the election, the internet will turn off. The internet stopped working. And then, well, why did it stop working? Well, we don't know. It was a technical glitch. But what's happening is that they don't want anybody to get the video footage out while they're stuffing the ballot boxes. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. I want to share that with you. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like the format, and we'll catch you on the next one. Keep being awesome.